Hello, hello, hello. Good morning and welcome back to yet another episode of the Unspoken Rules podcast. I am your host, Sebastian, aka Rabbit. I'm here with my wonderful co-host, Montana, aka Wildcard, as well as obviously Mr. Blake Spillers. Good morning, boys. How we doing?
Good morning, sir. A little bit of shock from last night's result of the Hawks-Bucks game, and a little bit of a scary moment for Giannis Antetokounmpo, but I'm sure we'll get right into that pretty soon here.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, definitely quick prayers up to Giannis for sure. Hopefully nothing serious.
As usual, we have some interesting topics to discuss and ultimately end with the debate topic of the day. First up, Bucks Hawks breakdown. No Trey, clearly no problem. But again, obviously, prayers up to Giannis. We'll get into that. Second, we're going to discuss the Scottie Pippen calling Mr. Phil Jackson a racist. A very huge accusation and our thoughts on it. Third, we'll be going into just a little bit of our thoughts on the Euro Cup games yesterday. And, what a huge win by England to shock Germany, as well as Ukraine reaching the quarterfinals for the first time ever, upsetting Sweden, especially after that red card from Sweden late. Then we'll be obviously previewing the Suns-Clippers game and what a series this has been. And finally, we'll be debating today whether the Warriors should trade for Pascal Siakam or not. Let's get into episode 23. Take it from here, Montana.
All right, so we got the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Atlanta Hawks 110, the Milwaukee Bucks 88. The Hawks tie up the series 2-2. The Atlanta Hawks did not have Trae Young yesterday. The big story coming out of this game was Giannis Antetokounmpo, who had a scary injury on I think it was his left leg, if I'm not mistaken. He had looks like it's going to be a hyperextended knee. Of course, we won't know the full results until we see an MRI later. I believe today is going to be the MRI for Giannis, and we'll see what the results are from there, if there was any structural damage or not. But as far as the Atlanta Hawks go, let's take a look at this box score, because we had a lot of contributions from the Hawks yesterday. It was a very valiant effort without Trae Young. Lou Williams, starting in the place of Trae Young, had 20. Where was this Lou Williams all this year, bro? I don't understand. 21 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds. Bogdan Bogdanovic had 20 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds. Clint Capella had 15 points and 7 rebounds. Kevin Huerter, 15 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds. Cam Reddish had 12 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists. Danilo Gallinari had 10 points, so a lot of double-digit scoring from the Atlanta Hawks in yesterday's game. As far as the Milwaukee Bucks go, Giannis Antetokounmpo, of course, left early in the second half, finished with 14 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. As far as the other Bucks players go, a lot of lifeless basketball was played yesterday. Chris Middleton had 16 points, 5 assists, 6 and 8 rebounds. Jrue Holiday had 19 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds. No other double-digit scores for the Milwaukee Bucks. So, Sebastian, Blake, without Giannis Antetokounmpo, are the Hawks the better team with or without Trae Young? If going forward, do we see maybe a little bit more of an even playing field now? What do you guys see?
So, first thing, I mentioned literally the problems that, we could see from the Bucks, and what the Hawks would do, in their game today or yesterday. First, obviously, the Bucks with Chris Middleton, just not consistent. We've seen it at least this postseason, time and time again, consistency from him. He's had games where we've seen sparks and potential of him to be that second player that he needs to be, but ultimately, he's just not being consistent right now. That's what's really selling the bag for the Bucks. Obviously, Giannis got hurt and affected them, in some way, and nobody wanted to step up and give that production that they needed. But a quick note from ACL Recovery Club Twitter account. A source told me that the Bucks medical team had a positive Latchman's test on Giannis Antetokounmpo's left knee. If true, unfortunately, the MRI will reveal that the team already knows, and torn ACL is what that knee problem is with Giannis Antetokounmpo. So ultimately, this man, even if it is a hyperextension and it's not a torn ACL, I think he's done for the playoffs, not even the series. I think he's done for the playoffs, period. And so I don't think the Bucks are going to get that level of production from anybody. if Chris Middleton, continues to not step up. Now with the Hawks, not only did I say this series kind of reminded me like the Sixers series in the sense of, like I said in our group chat last night, the Hawks won game 1, lost 2 and 3 by blowouts, won 4-5, lost 6, and then won 7. But they ultimately, lived and died by that 3. When they're hot, they're hot. When they're not, they're not. Last night they were hot, and that game was over even before Giannis went down. Yes, they made a little run, the Bucks did, but ultimately, once he went down, they took advantage. The Hawks took advantage of that, and they clearly wanted the win, and it showed. And so, like I said, with Giannis being done for this series, I'll continue to say it, Hawks in 6, like I originally said. And other than that, there's pretty much nothing to it.
No, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. If Giannis is out, then it's going to be trouble. But the Hawks without Trae Young came out and played their best all-around game of the series so far. I mean, Bogdanovich came out hot from the three-point line, hitting 6 just himself. They also got good minutes from Cam Reddish and Lou Williams. Like Montana said, we haven't seen this Lou Will in the playoffs yet. I mean, he scored a team-high 21 on only 9 shots. Even though the Hawks deserve some of the credit, the Bucks did not play very well last night. I mean, aside from Giannis getting injured, Sebastian said it right. They were going to lose this game even with Giannis if Giannis hadn't got injured. Holiday and Middleton played very subpar last night. They didn't play horrible, but they didn't do anything that gave the Bucks a chance to win the game last night. And when that's your second and third best player, you need to play well in every single game if you want a chance to win the series. Now, the most important part from last night's game was obviously Giannis getting injured, because even if this doesn't end up being serious, like you said, he could probably still miss the rest of the playoffs. Hopefully this isn't a torn ACL like you said it might be. I'm hoping it's just a hyperextended knee. This playoffs have just shown that every single team has suffered an injury, it feels like. I mean, I can't think of one major team that was a contender that hasn't suffered some sort of injury. Maybe the Suns, but even the Suns had to deal with Chris Paul's shoulder injury, Chris Paul also getting COVID. I mean, things like that. I mean, this playoffs have been nuts. But now, if Trae Young comes back and Giannis doesn't, I think there's definitely an argument to be had that the Bucks won't be favored here on out for the rest of the series. But as of now, we haven't really gotten any more information regarding Giannis's injury. I mean, yes, Sebastian talks about that Twitter account. Still don't really know. Like I said, hopefully nothing serious. But even if he just misses the rest of the series, I don't know if the Bucks can win, because like Sebastian said, Chris Middleton has been so inconsistent all series long that I just can't see them winning this series with him playing like that. From here on out, he's going to have to be the top dog. He's going to have to drop 30-plus points a night for them to have a chance to win. And honestly, with how inconsistent he's been, I just don't see him doing that. Montana?
Yeah. As far as the Milwaukee Bucks go, this is a huge blow to lose Giannis Antetokounmpo at this current moment in the NBA playoffs. We've seen a lot of star players go down with injuries and whatnot during this playoff stretch. It's very unfortunate for the NBA to see this. I know we played a condensed schedule this year, and maybe that is contributing to this. But yesterday was a freak injury. It was this is a bad landing. That's all you can say about it. It's not like he wasn't healthy throughout the rest of this whole entire series and this whole entire playoffs. It's just an unfortunate situation and at the wrong time and in the wrong place. And as far as the Atlanta Hawks go, they had so many contributions yesterday that I couldn't believe. They were just making 3 after 3 after 3. Lou Williams, before this game, was coming off the bench. He didn't even average more than 5 points in the playoffs. I haven't even realized, because this guy was in the running for 6th man of the year last year. Where he had disappeared to this year is beyond me. I have no idea.
We can talk about it.
I knew that he was capable of doing this, but like at this point, there was a lot of talks about him retiring. I know before, during the middle of the season. This is his chance. I think this is his chance to make his moment like felt here. Because if this is the guy you can get when Trae Young comes back, if this is the guy you can get to come off the bench and everything, that's a huge boost for the Atlanta Hawks. On top of Cam Reddish returning, Danilo Gallinari, Bogdanovich played really well. John Collins didn't have a great game, but he didn't need to play that great yesterday because the whole entire rest of the team played really good. So Clint Capella only had 7 rebounds, but that's good enough from that situation yesterday. Even if Giannis doesn't come back if he's if he's deemed okay and he somehow comes back next game, I'm not sure how effective he's going to be. And if he isn't there, I do not think even if Trae Young isn't there for the Atlanta Hawks the next game, I still believe the Atlanta Hawks are probably going to win this series now. It's just going to be a tough hurdle for the Bucks to overcome scoring wise. I don't believe Chris Middleton can be the number one for the Milwaukee Bucks. Jrue Holiday needs if it's gonna happen, Jrue Holiday is gonna have to step up. It's just gonna be a tough road to climb for the Milwaukee Bucks going forward. Sebastian?
No, 100%. Now with the whole Lou Will thing, yeah, it was really just once he got traded, he contemplated retirement due to the fact that he's been bounced around the league too many times, and he talked about it in a podcast. How he just saw that, like, one, he wasn't getting paid. I read this I think like a couple weeks ago. Lou Will has never signed a contract to make $10 million a year in his entire career, and that's crazy to me. The man's won I don't know how many 2 or 3 6-mans of the year, and he hasn't signed one 10-year contract. I just don't understand that. So one, that, two, getting traded to Atlanta, a situation where ideally it didn't seem like at the time like this team was going to do anything because they still didn't they didn't make the coaching switch with Nate McMillan. But once they did that and he realized the potential of this squad, I think his mindset changed, and we saw the 6-man of the year Lou Will slowly develop and come back to life, and we saw that tonight, or last night I should say, and I got high hopes for Atlanta now, so we'll see.
No, yeah, I think Sebastian said it perfectly. I think he kind of just lost his confidence. He got traded so many times. He thought he had something with the Clippers. I mean, he was a reigning 6-man. Well, not reigning. He had been the 6-man of the year. He was the runner-up to 6-man of the year again last year. I mean, he has consistently been a great player off the bench his entire career. So getting traded to Atlanta, I think he got traded there right kind of at the peak of how bad they were. I think they were still around the 11 or 12 seed, like Sebastian said. They still hadn't fired their coach and hired Nate McMillan. I just think he felt lost. He felt like he didn't need to be out there. He kind of felt disrespected from being traded for what he's done for the Clippers. I mean, he meant so much to that team over the years. He was just one of those guys that was able to go in there, get you a bucket off the bench, and there aren't too many guys in the league that can do that. There's a few guys like Jordan Clarkson, Lou. I mean, there's guys like that can do it, but there aren't too many. So I understand why he definitely contemplated retirement, because he saw it. I mean, he saw the writing on the mirror at that point. He saw he didn't think this team was going to go anywhere. He thought, what's my role, honestly, on this team? But now I think he's finally accepted that. Trae Young getting injured might have been the best thing that happened to him, because it allowed him to go in there, play good quality minutes, and just go out there and do his thing, which is get buckets. I mean, shooting 7 of 9 and scoring 21 points. I mean, that's huge. I mean, that's very efficient. And that's just what Lou Will does. And he can go in there and he can take over games for you when you need it most. So I'm hoping that, we'll see from now on. I don't know. I think if Trae Young doesn't return, the Bucks still have a better overall team. But with Trae Young playing, I think the Hawks definitely have a better team. And whether or not we see a consistent play from Chris Middleton and Jrue Holiday, we'll have to see.
What's up?
We just got word from Mr. A little Woj bomb. The Lakers are finalizing a deal to hire former Knicks and Grizzlies coach and our favorite assistant coach, David Fizdale, as an assistant coach for the Lakers organization to fill in that Jason Kidd role.
Interesting. Take that for data. All right. Let's move on to the next topic of today's show. Blake, you know more about this whole situation than I do currently at the moment. Did Scottie Pippen call Phil Jackson a racist?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly looks like that. So Scottie Pippen went on the Dan Patrick show and claimed that Phil Jackson was racist and gave a few examples of why he thought that, with the 2 examples being, number one, when Phil had Steve Kukoc take the final shot in the 1994 playoff series versus the Knicks. Now, for those of you watching that don't know, Scottie basically, at the end of the game was tied. It was a playoff series. This is 1994, so no Michael Jordan. Scottie Pippen felt like the play should have been drawn up for him to take the final shot. Phil Jackson obviously had other ideas. He had Steve Kukoc take the final shot, and he did
Tony
Kukoc. I don't know why I said Steve. Tony Kukoc. Sorry about that. take the final shot. He did, in fact, hit the shot. And then Scottie's trying to claim here that Phil was racially motivated for picking Kukoc to take the shot and not him. And then he also mentioned something about in Phil's book that he wrote about him coming at Kobe Bryant and then went and coached him. I'm not really sure how I feel about this, because if this is true, then it's obviously something that needs to be taken very seriously, because racism is not something that you take lightly. But to me, it kind of just sounds like Scottie is still upset and mad that he didn't get to take that final shot. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, to me, it just sounds like Scottie's in his feelings. And this isn't the only thing that Scottie's been coming at. I mean, Scottie recently has also been coming at Kevin Durant for his Game 7 loss to the Bucks. He said something along the lines that if it were LeBron would have done something differently, would have forced a double team and then made the right decision. I just don't understand how you criticize Kevin Durant after going out there, scoring 48 points, and not only that, but hitting that game-tying shot that was damn near impossible to make to send it to overtime. And if his foot would have been like 2 inches further back, if he just didn't have the biggest feet in the world, that would have been a 3. The game would have been over, and there would have been no talks about this. So to me, obviously, like I said, if this is true, then this needs to be taken seriously, but I'm not 100% sure how I feel about it. To me, it just sounds like Scottie's in his feelings, like he always is. Scottie always wants the attention to be on him, but it just never is. And that's why he's kind of pulling, like Montana said, a Kwame Brown. He's getting his name back out there. He's just trying to get people to be on him. And he also said something along the lines that, I don't know if everyone watching watched The Last Dance, but when that conversation Michael had with Steve Kerr where he's like, all right, when they double me, I'm going to pass you the ball. Scottie's claiming that Michael just said that for the cameras and that Michael knew the cameras were there and that it was totally scripted. So, like, I'm not really sure what to believe with all this. Like I said, Scottie sounds like he might just be in his feelings right now. I'm not really 100% sure, but Sebastian, Montana, I'll let you go from there.
No, yeah. So all I was gonna really say is I don't think Scottie even truly believes that Phil Jackson is racist. I think, like you said, the dude is just salty from that whole situation, where Kukoc, or however you pronounce it, took the shot, you know what I'm saying, and not Scottie, because with MJ not being there, he's like, oh, this was my time to show, that I'm this great, whatever the case may be. But, like, at the same time, you got to realize, bro, this is something that Phil has seen in the past with MJ being the greatest player that he was, and he drew up a play where Jordan got doubled, and who did he hit? Kerr and Pax in 2 different situations hit big shots to secure a dub that they needed down the stretch. So there's it cannot be racially, it can't be like a racial thing at all. I think it's just more so, if he knew or he assumed Scottie would get doubled or maybe even tripled, and just hit the person that would be wide open, and ultimately your best shooter, bang, knock it down, call it a night. But I think it just comes from coaching and his greatness when it comes to that. I think, again, just Scottie's in his head and, just being, I don't know, bro. I don't know what the hell's going on with him. But I don't like or agree with what he's saying. But if it is actually, if he is actually racist, then obviously, like you said, it's something that needs to be addressed. But I think Scottie's just in his feels.
As far as this whole situation go, I believe this whole story that Scottie Pippen is talking about is really ridiculous. I haven't heard any in years prior. I have not heard one person say, "Oh, Phil Jackson was a racist," blah blah blah. If that was the case, then guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant wouldn't have like respected him in that moment in time. He probably would have been out of the league if that was the case, because I'm sorry, this whole story is just ridiculous. As far as the whole, Scottie Pippen always wanted to be the best player, and he was always in Michael Jordan's shadow. And this whole situation is a mess, and this is unnecessary. And now this created so much heat on Phil Jackson. In order to corroborate the story, someone else has to come out and say something now, because if not, I don't believe Scottie Pippen for 1 second. And this whole situation needs to be out in the past and not in the future. Any other thoughts on this before we move on?
I think it's just proof. I mean, there have been so many incidents where Scottie Pippen has been shown to be kind of just like a petty person. I believe he's the person that doesn't tip, and not only does he not tip, he encourages everyone else not to tip. So this isn't the only thing. there have been stories that may or may not be true of him refusing to sign autographs and what has happened from that. So I just don't think Scottie's overall, I mean, he doesn't seem like the nicest guy, but hey, I mean, like I said, Sebastian said it too, and then Montana just said it as well. Until someone else comes out and either agrees or disagrees with what he says, I think Montana said it perfectly. No one else. And I mean, how long was Phil Jackson in the league for, either coaching or GMing? And there was never one single mention of him being a racist. So, I mean, obviously, yes, we need to take it seriously, but until someone else can come out and agree and say what Scottie's saying is true, then I just don't think that what Scottie's saying is 100% true.
All right. As we move on from this topic, we now move on to the Euro, I guess 2021, but it's technically called Euro 2020 Cup. We had two games yesterday in the round of 16. We have England and Germany. England winning 2-0 over Germany. And then we had Ukraine winning 2-1 yesterday over Sweden. So, Sebastian, what are your thoughts on yesterday's games, and how are we going to look at the quarterfinals upcoming?
I mean, I don't know, man. That it was a very impressive and yet another shocking moment, at least from my end, where Germany lost 2-0 to England, and that game overall was extremely close. Thomas Mueller had his chance down the stretch late before even England got their first goal, and so it was just very unfortunate for Germany to go down the way they did. But it's just credit to England and the offensive firepower that they had. Ultimately, was the difference maker with Kane and Raheem Sterling, my dog. Like, it just clearly they just had and wanted the game more than Germany did. And it's crazy because I was really hyping up Manuel Neuer that entire game. Like, me and Montana were just sitting there watching that game for the most part, and I was just there hyping up that Germany team, and for them to just lose down the stretch. I think it was 80th minute was the first one, and 85th minute was the second goal, or whatever the case may be. It's just, I don't know, it's very unfortunate to say the least. Now with the Sweden game, Ukraine, they took advantage, bro. They took advantage, especially with that late red card that Sweden got to drop down a 10-man, and then ultimately going into extra time, 1-1. And at 121 minute mark, I think it was 121:34. I forgot his name. I think it was Dibuk, or however you pronounce his name, Dibuk or whatever. He got a nice ass header and secured that win for Ukraine to ultimately succeed and take them to their first ever quarterfinal. So congrats to Ukraine on taking advantage, with Sweden down a man. But it definitely was a very fun game to watch, to say the least.
No, yeah, I just want a quick shout out to the entire Euro Cup in general. I mean, every game I feel like I've been watching has been exciting. I mean, it's gone down to the last minute. I can't count how many games have gone in the extra minutes. I mean, we'll start with that England game. Like you said, I mean, that game was neck and neck the entire way. It was 0-0 going into, I believe the first goal was scored in the 75th minute. I think it was something like that. But yeah, I mean, those two, I mean, credits to England for pulling out that huge 2 goals. I mean, Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, like you said, were the 2 that scored, but they scored very late. They came out clutch for their team. But yeah, I mean, it was a great match to watch. I mean, Germany played their hearts out. England played their hearts out, which is everything you can ask for. I mean, all I've looked for in NBA playoff series, the Euro Cups, anything in general, it's just a good game. I mean, or a good match. You want something exciting to watch. You don't want to blow out. And honestly, the entire Euro Cup, I mean, the majority of matches that I've watched have been close. And now going to that Sweden-Ukraine moment, I just think, like you said, that red card was just a little too much for Sweden to overcome there in the extra minutes. I mean, it's hard in any match to go down a player and expect to come out victorious. Ukraine ultimately took advantage of that. And like you said, that Artem Dovbyk, or however you pronounce it, sorry if I pronounce that incorrectly, in 121st minute. That's at the very end of the game. He came in clutch for his team, got that dub. Did not think that Ukraine was going to win that match, but hey, red card. I mean, the red card just proved, I mean, it's too much for a team sometimes to overcome. And I'm definitely excited to see the quarterfinals I think they go on Friday, right? I think that's the next
Yeah, let me
quarterfinals.
preview the Friday matches. We have Switzerland and Spain and Belgium and Italy. And then on Saturday, we have the Czech Republic against Denmark and Ukraine against England. So, yeah, a lot of teams that were not favored going into this tournament are in the quarterfinals. And we still have some heavy favorites like Belgium and Italy who are playing each other. England, obviously, and Spain. So we have a lot of European teams that were not expected to be here, and pulling upsets is the name of the game here in this Euro Cup. Sebastian, what are your thoughts on these? What are your thoughts on these quarterfinal games upcoming?
The winner of Belgium Spain will be the winner of the Euro Cup. That's my opinion.
Well, Belgium's playing Italy.
I know, but won't Belgium be playing Spain after that? Isn't that how the bracket is looking?
Yeah.
If Spain wins and Belgium wins, yeah.
So if both of those teams advance as I think they should, the winner of that game will be the winner of the Euro Cup.
I can agree.
I thought Italy was favored over Belgium. No,
I just think Belgium is just too much of a firepower of a unit.
Belgium's been on fire recently. I mean, I wouldn't bet. It's hard to bet against them right now for how I think they're playing. They might not be the favorite in that match, but I think they're playing the best soccer out of any team left, or at least the tied for the best soccer out of any team left. So yeah, I can definitely agree with what Sebastian is saying. I think it's going to be Spain or Belgium winning it all this year.
England's been pretty tough in this tournament, and they've been favored in a lot of matches. This next match against Ukraine is a winnable matchup for England, and I really don't like the Czech Republic against Denmark match. I don't feel like any of those two teams are going to be the winners of this tournament, but crazier things have happened. I like England to come out of that side of the bracket. And then on the other side of the bracket, Spain is really good. Belgium is really good. So does Italy. That Italy-Belgium game, that could determine who the winner of this whole entire tournament is right there. So if I had to pick any of those teams on that side of the bracket to be in the finals, it would probably be Spain, just because I feel like they're more seasoned competitors. Yes, you said Belgium has a lot of firepower. Spain has been there and done that before. So I see a Spain-England final here in the Euro Cup. What do you think about that, Sebastian?
No, I can definitely see it. As much as I despise England, because of the past with Colombia, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I'll take either Spain, like I said, Spain or Belgium, if both teams respectfully win. Whoever wins on that side of the bracket, I think, will ultimately win the entire Euros.
All right, we shall see the next match. The next two matches are on Friday, and then Saturday. So Friday, Saturday are the quarterfinals. So we'll be talking about those matches on Monday's show for sure. As we move on from the Euro Cup, we now move on back to the NBA. The Western Conference Finals continues tonight, 9:00 Eastern Time, over on ESPN. Los Angeles Clippers are looking to tie the series against the Phoenix Suns at 3 games apiece and send it back to the Valley for Game 7. And boy, oh boy, if the Clippers win tonight, the Suns are in trouble, sir. Paul George, the Clippers, they're playing so. I still believe I still believe, man. If a couple things went the Clippers' way in Game 1 and 2, they could have won the series in Game 5 because they're playing at that high of a level right now. In my opinion, I still believe that the Clippers are the better team than the Phoenix Suns, even without some of the missing players like Kawhi Leonard and Zubac. They still have Paul George playing a high level right now. He's proving that he's not a B player, he's an A player. He's playing great defense. He's scoring the basketball. Yes, he made some blunders, turnovers in the last game, but he has to wake up in that department because sometimes he makes lazy passes, and that's something you can do, especially at tonight's game. Are we going to see playoff P or pandemic P? I believe we will see playoff P in this game. I believe this is too big of an opportunity for the Clippers not to win this game. Patrick Beverley has been such a ball hawk on Devin Booker. I know Devin Booker had 30 points in the last game. But when it matters most, he clamps up on defense, and he makes Devin Booker work for his shot. Chris Paul, he played well last game, but obviously the Suns are going to need someone else besides Chris Paul and Devin Booker to step up in the scoring department. Whether or not it's DeAndre Ayton, as I mentioned after Game 5, that the Suns have to do a better job of getting him the ball in the paint and scoring post shots, because that's where they can take advantage of the Clippers in the size department, and they haven't been able to do that yet. Let's see if that changes tonight. As far as the Clippers go in adjustments, whatever they did last game, they need to keep it rolling in this game as far as making shots early, getting out to a sizable lead. You don't want to have the game be too close, because if that's the situation, I believe Devin Booker is going to take over the game late, and you don't want to be in that situation. Guys like DeMarcus Cousins, Marcus Smart Sr., obviously we know how good Reggie Jackson has been in these playoffs, and he's playing like Paul George's number 2 at the moment. So I believe the Clippers are going to win tonight's game. It's going to be a lot closer than it was in Game 5, but I believe the Clippers win this and send it back to the Valley for Game 7.
So in order for the Suns to win this game, like you mentioned, they need to get Ayton more involved, like he has been for most of this series. Ayton just needs to come out and be aggressive rather than passive like he was, and just be himself. I mean, he literally just let himself get boxed out from like 2 different people, and he just said, all right, well, if you're going to box me out with 2, you could just have that board at that point. I don't know what, Aiden's mindset was going into that game. I don't know what, if whatever discussion he had or whatever the case may be, but they win this game through him and, because of him, because honestly, you'll get your production from D-Book, maybe CP3, but Ayton has to be that big factor. Now for the Clippers, to win, they have to have that same level of production from the supporting cast, as well as obviously another 35-point plus game from PG, shooting over 70%. If I don't see him shoot over 70% like he did last game, I don't see them winning this game. Someone needs to step up, because obviously you're going to get that production from Reggie and PG. The question is who's going to be that's going to step up and get this win, or at least get that production off the bench or in that starting lineup to help Reggie and PG secure this dub. If not, I ultimately see the Suns advance to their first NBA Finals since 1993.
70%. You think they're not going to win if he shoots under 70%? I think that's a
and they
really
have one.
hot
They
take.
have one game. They have one game out of this entire series that he shot under 70%, and they won.
Well, they've only won 2 games so far.
Okay,
so
exactly.
Okay. Either way, I don't think that's the case. I think he can shoot, and as long as he has a good shooting night, which I think revolves around him shooting at least around, at the very least, high 40%. Exactly, like low 50s and up is what I'm expecting from him, and they can get a win. I have been saying a lot of the time, but the Suns just aren't shooting well. The Suns aren't knocking down shots. That's why they're losing the game. But I'm not giving enough credit to the Clippers organization as a whole. Not only the players out there for clamping up, but the adjustments and the schemes that the entire Clippers coaching staff has put out there. They're making every possession tough for the Suns. You want to say, oh, DeAndre Ayton looks out of his element, he's just letting them. No, they're clamping him up by having good schemes on defense to take him off the boards, to take him out of the paint, to force him to be out of his element. I think the Clippers are playing their best basketball of the season. I know they're missing Kawhi Leonard, but I think without Kawhi Leonard right now, they've really focused on trying to eliminate the errors and do the little things right. Yes, Montana said it perfectly. Paul George is still having a couple turnovers that are very questionable, just lazy passes. Sometimes he gets lazy dribbling and gets the ball easily stolen from him. Those are plays that he can't have tonight for them to win the game. But I expect Paul George to have huge minutes. I expect Reggie Jackson to come out and have a good game. And I expect Marcus Morris also to have a really good game. Those 3 have been the Clippers' big 3 since Kawhi has gone down, and they haven't disappointed really. They've come out, they've played hard. They've not only played good offensively, but they're also playing really good defensively. Shout out to Marcus Morris, because he's had to deal with guarding the big man a lot in a lot of circumstances for the Clippers, and that's something he just wasn't really used to before coming to LA. He's used to be guarding to the wing man, but recently he's been guarding the 4 or the 5 of the Suns, which is either DeAndre Ayton or it just depends on who's in the lineup. Sometimes it's Dario Saric. But I just expect that the Clippers are going to come out there and they're going to out-hustle the Suns. I think that the Suns might have more skill on their team right now without Kawhi Leonard being on the Clippers, but I think the Clippers are playing better basketball. They're making every possession hard on the Suns. Their offense just looks easy. They're getting good shots. Paul George is moving the ball around really well. Reggie Jackson is getting to the bucket too easy. I mean, no one in the Suns has been able to stop Reggie Jackson from getting into the hole. And then you've got Marcus Morris, who's just been having a great series, and his mid-range jumper is lethal. I didn't know it maybe coming into this series, but his mid-range jumper is absolutely lethal, and it's been showing the last couple games. He's been knocking down that shot easy, and he's also been getting a lot of good looks from the three-point line that he's been knocking down. Like Montana said, coming into this series, since Kawhi Leonard's been injured, I didn't think the Clippers really had a shot of winning the series, but now I've changed my mind, and I'm going to have to jump on with Montana. I'm saying Clippers in 7. I think the Clippers are going to win. They're at home tonight. They're going to show out for their hometown. Then they're going to go to the Suns. They're going to go to Phoenix in Game 7, and guess what? Like I said last episode, Game 7, anything can happen. It takes one player that you didn't expect to go off for them to go off, and then who knows what happens. I'm saying Clippers in 7, and this is going to be crazy. We could have a Clippers-Hawks final series. I mean, I did not expect Clippers. The Clippers were my before the playoffs started, the Clippers were my pick to go to the finals, but that was with my assumption of Kawhi Leonard playing. Without Kawhi Leonard, I never thought they'd be there. And now you're adding the Hawks. I had the Hawks losing to the Knicks in the first round, so I definitely did not see them having a chance of being there. So it's just crazy to think about that could be our finals matchup, a Kawhi-less Clippers and a Hawks team that I just never expected to be there, Montana.
We have to give a lot of credit to Ty Lue and how he's been able to make adjustments on the fly from each game. We've seen a bunch of different starting lineups come out each game. Obviously, he had to make some adjustments with Zubac being out and the size department. DeMarcus Cousins, in my opinion, he's the key to making this whole thing work here. If you can give them 11 minutes and get them around 10 points, that's a huge W for the Clippers because the guy can still ball out in the post and he can still score the basketball at will against the smaller defenders. Problem is, playing him extra minutes, I don't see that happening because he's a defensive liability. If he can get offensively, if they can get any kind of production from him, the Clippers are going to be set in this game tonight. And I believe that this is going to be too much for the Suns to handle. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. Chris Paul better be ready to go tonight. I know he's not wanting to blow another 3-1 lead like he did with the Rockets, or even the Clippers. So we'll see. Let's see what happens. All right. So we're moving on now, and I believe that was our last topic of today's main topics. So now we're going to move on to the debate topic of today's show. Should the Golden State Warriors trade for Pascal Siakam, power forward of the Toronto Raptors? This is going to be an interesting debate. I know a lot of us have different thoughts on this situation. So, Blake, how about you go first on this one?
Sure thing. So anyways, I think we should just look at the logistics of what a possible trade could look like. And I'm seeing a lot of either the Warriors trading the 7th and Wiseman for Pascal, or even having to trade the 7th and 14th and Wiseman for Pascal. So I guess the first question is, do we think it's worth it? Giving up both first-round picks and Wiseman, who I think is going to be a great player in this league for years to come? I think the answer is yes. The answer is yes if you think Klay Thompson is going to come back healthy, actually, which I think they do. And I think the Warriors are looking at their lineup that they have right now. You've got an aging Draymond. You've got an aging Steph. You've got an aging Klay Thompson. Arguably your three best players are all coming to not the end of their prime, but kind of towards the end of their prime, especially with Klay Thompson coming off of back-to-back season-ending injuries. I think they're in win-now mode, and I think that they think they can win a championship with Pascal. They've been saying they needed one more piece. I thought this team alone with what they have, plus Klay Thompson, could possibly be a contender. But if you had Pascal Siakam into that with only losing one starting player plus 2 draft picks, I think you've got to pull the trigger. I think Pascal Siakam's a very, very good two-way player. Yes, he gets a lot of hate for having one move. He doesn't have a bag. Well, people say the same thing about Giannis, and Giannis this playoffs has consistently put up 30 and 10 every single game. And I think that's something Pascal could maybe do for the Warriors. The Warriors a defense. That Warriors team has been known to be horrible defensively. You have Draymond, who's a great defender, but other than that, no one else in that team really defends. You add a Pascal Siakam into that lineup, and now you have Pascal. You have a small ball lineup of Pascal maybe at the 4 or 5, and then Draymond either at the 4 or 5, depending where they put Pascal. That team's going to be stouty on the defensive end. You're looking at a potential starting lineup of Steph Curry at the 1, Klay Thompson at the 2, Andrew Wiggins at the 3, Draymond at the 4, and Pascal at the 5. Or obviously you can flip-flop who plays the 5 or 4 between Pascal and Draymond. That is a top lineup in the league, in my opinion. I think that starting lineup alone puts them into top 10 teams in the league. And I think that automatically puts them into contenders for next year. I think that team at its peak could even be a top 5 team in the league. And Pascal Siakam, like I said, offensively, he's going to figure out his game. I mean, he's just been, for just being athletic and lengthy, he's been out there. And for the Raptors, getting out there, I think he averaged over 25 points per game this year. He's going to go out there, get rebounds, and he hustles. He plays so hard defensively, which is what makes him a good defender. I'm a firm believer that the majority of defense is hustle and being able to know where you need to be on the floor. And Pascal has proven to not only have the hustle and heart to want to play defense, but he also knows where he needs to be on the floor to be able to play good defense. I think this is exactly what the Warriors need. They need another big man that can get them a ton of points, that can get them a bucket when Steph is getting doubled, a bucket when Klay is getting doubled, but then it can also come on the other side of the floor and get stops. I think this Warriors team could actually be very scary with Pascal Siakam. I think he's a perfect fit for this lineup. I think Steve Kerr can fit him into the offense any way they need him. And like I said, defensively, they're going to become a much better team. And I think this Warriors team, to the West, not only the West, but the East, every team needs to watch out for them if they make this trade happen, because they go from borderline contenders to maybe the best team in the league almost by adding Pascal Siakam. So I think this trade could put other teams on notice. And I'd be, like I said, I'd be scared if I was another team if the Warriors make this trade. Sebastian?
I mean, look, at the end of the day, hold on, let me pull it. I think the Warriors do need to make this move some way. The only thing is, like you said, I don't know exactly what they're gonna do. I'm curious to see what this trade goes through for both sides. Is it the 7th and Wiseman? Is it the 7th? The 14th and Wiseman? Is it maybe the 7th?
Here's my issue with this whole entire trade package. The money. How do you make the money work in this situation? I believe you're gonna have. I believe because I don't think you can pay. You can have 5 guys making over $25 million each on the starting lineup if you add Siakam to the squad. Because I just don't know how you make that money work. You're gonna have to trade a bunch of bench pieces. I think the only way that you make that trade work is if you trade Andrew Wiggins, because I just don't know how the money matches up.
I think Kelly Oubre is the name. He makes a decent amount of money. I think if they get rid of Kelly Oubre, I think that'll free up. Obviously, I don't know exactly what their cap space situation is looking like right now, but I think with trading or releasing Kelly Oubre, they're going to save a ton of money, and it should free up enough space. And let's be honest, the Warriors are not shy and don't care if they go into the luxury tax. They don't care the amount of money that they have to spend. If it means winning a championship, they're going to pull the trigger. We've seen the Warriors be over the luxury tax before when they had Kevin Durant. And if they can have someone like Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson with those contracts, I don't see why they couldn't add a Pascal Siakam with his contract. But like you said it right, Montana, someone will have to go, and it's going to be Andrew Wiggins or it's going to be Kelly Oubre. I don't know anyone else on that team that's really, other than their top 3, that's really making enough money to make a difference. So I think, like you said, it'll be either Andrew Wiggins or Kelly Oubre that gets the boot with this trade. But if I'm the Warriors, I still think it's worth it. Pascal Siakam, potential, and not even just potential, just who he is as a player now, I think is better than Andrew Wiggins, and I think is better than Kelly Oubre. So I still think the trade's worth it regardless of their cap situation. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we have to see what the cap situation is like for them, what they have to give up. But yeah, Sebastian, you were going on.
So with Kelly Oubre, he's linked up to Dallas and a few other teams. A lot of fans, in this over in Dallas are intrigued by Kelly Oubre's ability. We'll see what happens, in the near future. But with Pascal, obviously a combination of injuries, a combination of, not having that home court and not being able to be, at home this season. I wasn't the biggest fan or quote unquote supporter of Siakam this year. I was very disappointed. Although he averaged 21.7, I still think he could have had a way better year. I'm happy to see him bounce back. I would love to see him in a Warriors fit. I feel like that development core over there will be able to develop his, shooting ability, as well as obviously you mentioned his defensive ability. So I think Pascal Siakam will be a huge threat moving forward, if and only if he does go to Golden State. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of upside. You know what I'm saying? Overall, whether this trade happens or not, Pascal will bounce back and have a great year. And if the trade does happen, then the Golden State Warriors, in my opinion, I think become a top 5 team, maybe top 3 team in the league, or not in the league, but in the West. And so, I think it's a conversation to be addressed and see exactly what pieces need to be traded, whether it's Eric Pascal, James Wiseman, the 7th, the 14th, maybe even getting rid of Draymond, whatever the case may be. Just look at all the pieces that need to be addressed, take care of it, and see if you can solidify this trade. Also, a keynote to be talked about is, I think I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I read this yesterday, that Kevon Looney, I think he opted out of his contract, so I think he's done. I think he's gonna test.
I think he actually opted in.
Oh, he opted in?
Opted in.
Oh,
Yeah,
it was
so
opted in. Oh, I didn't. Okay,
yeah.
see, I didn't read it entirely, so never mind. I was completely wrong. Never mind. I take that back. Okay, never mind. I'm lost now. All right, you guys got it at that point.
No, yeah, Kevin Looney, I think, opted in for like his $6 million contract. But no, I understand why you think he opted out, because when they posted that, I read it as he opted out first as well, because sometimes it's confusing to read. But yeah, I think he opted in to like a $5.8 million contract, something like that.
Yeah.
As far as my standpoint on this goes, I believe, yes, it would be nice to get. Here's the two different standpoints you could look at here is how many more years do you believe you can have a top level Steph Curry and Klay Thompson for? Who knows what Klay Thompson's going to look like when he comes back? How many more years do you believe that these two guys are going to be at the top of at their game at the moment? We saw them didn't make the playoffs this past season with Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins on the squad. So maybe does Pascal Siakam take them over the edge with Klay Thompson on the squad? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I'm still a firm believer that the Warriors should stand pat, keep James Wiseman on the squad, let him keep developing for the Golden State Warriors, because I believe in maybe 2 years this guy could be a force on the center position for the Warriors. And then you get two lottery picks to keep this year, the 7th and the 14th pick, that you don't know what's going to translate with those 2 picks. I mean, you've seen people at that 14th overall pick become star players in this league, or even around that area become star players in this league, and you even have a top 7 draft pick that could turn into who knows what. I believe, yes, Pascal Siakam would be a great upgrade for the Golden State Warriors, but I believe if it takes too much of the young assets that they have, or potentially will have, I don't believe they should pull the trigger, only because you got to start looking to the future eventually. And if you add these rookie players that maybe develop in 2 to 3 years to Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, James Wiseman, Draymond Green, you might have a perennial championship team on your hands. It's this tough situation here. If Bob Myers, the GM of the Warriors, thinks that they should go all in now, and now's the time to do it, just do it, because at that point, if you're gonna risk your future for a championship now with Steph Curry, I guess you should do it. But the West is getting tougher and tougher. Yes, I would like to believe that the Warriors would be a favorite to go and win the championship next year, but it's not guaranteed. We've seen Steph Curry, Klay Thompson get injured numerous times throughout the career, and they're only getting older. So that 7th and 14th pick becomes really valuable to them in terms of acquiring young assets to stay on this team. And I believe James Wiseman is a key pillar for the Warriors and their franchise going forward.
No, yeah, I think you said it right. I think it really just depends on whether the Warriors are, in fact, looking into the future, or they look at the fact that, yes, you said that Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, how many years left do you have at them playing at the top of their prime, or at least near the top of their prime? And I think that's just gonna, whatever they decide to do, that's gonna be the biggest question, whether they want to win now and try and utilize the remaining years left with Steph Curry and that team, or do you look into the future on the other side and say, guess what? They get injured a bunch. If we trade for Pascal, there's no guarantee that those 2 stay on the floor. So it might all be for nothing, or we lose our entire future by trading those 2 picks and our first round pick from last year. So I definitely hear that side of the story. But if I'm the Warriors, I look at this team and say, guess what? Just as you said, the 7th and 14th pick can turn out really well for them. Well, those picks could turn out to be bust as well. I have seen plenty of teams take a 7th pick and it turns out to be nothing. The Bulls do it almost every year. They get a 7th pick. The 14th pick is also no guarantee, but like you said, they could get a steal. So, I mean, it really just depends on if, like you said, Bob Myers is going to be looking into the future instead of looking at the now, because if they trade for Pascal Siakam, it's obviously you have probably a 3 to 4 year window with this team, and how far you think you can get with them. That's really what decides whether they make this trade or not. I think whether or not they think they can win multiple rings in the next 4 to 5 years, or if they think they can't, then they won't pull the trigger, and you'll see them keep those 2 draft picks. So I think, like I said, it just comes down to whether or not they think that they can win now, or if the future is too valuable for them to waste.
Sebastian, any more thoughts on that?
No, I mean, well, we're just gonna have to see with how everything is addressed coming or moving forward. Me, what I'm saying, when I do rebuilds and whatnot, I know it has nothing to do with in real life, but I love my prospects, I love my rookies, and I love my draft picks. So, I can see the point as what you're trying to make, Montana, but I say, why not? Pascal's what, 25, 26, maybe what? How old is he? Let me see. Pascal's not even
that older than 26.
He's not even that old, right? So let's just you can build around him and actually not James Wiseman. You can build around him and freaking Jordan Poole and Eric Pascal and whoever the hell left is on that team when Draymond and all of them dip out. So I mean, it's just a matter of, do they want to win now really quick before them boys retire, or do they just ultimately stay like with what you said, Montana, and build young for the future?
Here's my thing here. I believe the Warriors would have been a championship contender this year with a Klay Thompson that was healthy. I believe that the way Steph Curry was playing towards the end of the season, if he had that extra scoring punch on his side with Klay Thompson, there's no doubt in my mind that the Warriors probably would have won that play-in game. They probably wouldn't even have to be in that situation. Even with Andrew Wiggins, and if they had James Wiseman healthy, I believe that this team could have made a run. I believe they could have. And if they would have had the 7th and the 14th pick, or maybe not the 14th pick if they had made a run, but they would still have the 7th pick, and that would have been a huge asset to have. I still believe that Curry is playing at the top of his game, and I don't believe they need to make any drastic trades like that to improve the squad, because I believe Klay Thompson is enough to put the Warriors over the edge. I mean, we've seen it before.
Yeah, I just think it depends on to health, because if the league, not even just the Warriors, if the league in general is fully healthy, I think Klay Thompson is enough to push them into being contenders, but I don't think they can win a championship with the squad they have right now. In this year's playoffs, it would have been different because of all the injuries we've seen. There's not a single really fully healthy team left, so it would have been a different story. But next year, I don't think the injuries are going to be as much of a concern. You're going to see a lot of teams that have more time off. You're going to see a lot of teams that don't have as many injuries in the playoffs. And I just don't think that Warriors big 3 will be enough, because I don't think they have enough. That 2015 squad that they won with just that big 3, the role players on that team were insane. They had such a good and deep bench. They all knew their roles. They played so well together. I don't think they have the role players they did then. So I think if they want to win a championship soon, I think they have to make the trade. But if they aren't looking into winning if they don't think this team can win a championship, then obviously look into the future. But I think the only chance they have of actually contending and winning a championship next year is if they make this trade happen.
I guess we will see what happens. The NBA offseason is almost around the corner. The NBA finals are around the corner. We're going to get into all those free agency and trade talks, NBA draft talk coming up relatively real soon. So a lot to look forward to as we get ready to go into this offseason. It's going to be a tightened off-season window for a lot of teams. So we'll see what happens as we move forward with the Golden State Warriors. I believe that's going to be it for today's show of Unspoken Rules number 23. If you guys are listening on the audio form, make sure you rate, review, follow the podcast, download the episodes. If you guys are watching on video formats such as YouTube, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, drop a comment in the comment section. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm, helps us get us seen by more people. So we appreciate the support by all of you guys watching our show every single day. As far as that goes, Montana, aka me. You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Wildcard Movies. Sebastian, where can they find you?
Rabbit FL everywhere.
And they can
And
find
Blake?
me at Blake Spillers everywhere.
And all right, I believe that's going to be it for today's show. Unspoken Rules number 23. We shall see you guys on tomorrow's episode. Peace.